Good morning again, and welcome to the Brenda Perryman Show with Brenda Perryman. I am here on TV 33 WHPR Comcast 20 in Detroit, and with me right now, my guest is Mr. Daron Calhoun, who's with the Michigan Employment Opportunity Commission, Equal Opportunity Commission.
That's just the U.S. We're federal.
Oh, federal. United States Equal Employment Opportunity Commission.
That's correct.
Right, and you're welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Love having you. Love the locks always. You know I do. But I wanted to talk to you real quick because I've been seeing a lot of these commercials and hearing a lot of these commercials about if your employer looks at you the wrong way, or if your employer tries to seduce you or something, you could come to these firms. Tell us about these firms, because can't they come to you if that happens?
Absolutely. In fact, the law requires that they come to us.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The language of the law says in Title VII of the Civil Rights Act that you must exhaust your administrative remedies before going to court. So they have to come to us. So even if you go to a lawyer, even if a person goes to a lawyer, and we don't shun that. We don't tell them that they shouldn't go to a lawyer, but even if they do, they still have to come to the EEOC to file first, and then we determine whether we're going to investigate it or not, and then send it on. Now, we have a lot of great partners in the plaintiff bar as well as the defense bar. We do a lot of good work with them. Our director is on the employment section of the State Bar of Michigan. She's one of the employment directors there. So we have a lot of great partners, but charging parties don't know that it doesn't cost to file a charge. It should never cost them. If they would, we don't charge. The federal government, it's your constitutionally protected right.
Okay, so before you go to one of those agencies, I think you should
give us a call. Our telephone number is 313-226-4600. You can look us up online at www.eeoc.gov, G-O-V. Call our office and just talk to one of our investigators. We don't charge for that.
Well, why do you think that suddenly these commercials are cropping up? I never used to hear these.
Probably because we take in more charges now than we've been taking in a lot of years.
What do you attribute that to?
The economy tanks. This is not any. I don't have any empirical data on this, but when the economy tanks, jobs are lost. If I've made it to a position, then I'm going to make sure people like me stay in those positions. Or if I'm some type of lech, then I'm going to make sure that you know that I have power over you.
Lech.
Well, that's a pleasant way of putting it. If you're a predator, an employment predator, and you see some young lady or some young man that you know you can have power over, then I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you know that. Those charges, and the more charges we get, or the more information that gets out, the more charges. We don't look bad on a lot of charges. We want to make sure everyone's rights are protected. So I believe it's because when the economy tanks, jobs are lost. People are trying to stay employed, and people are trying to keep their friends or someone who looks like them employed. Then you have more charges.
So you find that, are you all able to tell that people are doing these for lodging these charges for those kind of reasons, to stay employed or something like that?
Well, we find that we get a lot. We get a lot of charges of people who are just trying to make it. We were talking with someone in one of our charges just this week where a person endured the type of discrimination that they endured for years because they were trying to keep a job. It had reached a level that was so bad that they just had to complain. And once the minute they complained, they were fired. So, which is retaliation.
So what happens? They had these things happening to them for years. They couldn't take it anymore. They file the charges. Then they are fired?
Then they're fired. And that's called retaliation. That's actually a separate charge.
Oh,
If once a person complains, or once you complain about employment discrimination, you've just created a protected basis for yourself, regardless if the charge is meritorious or not. You cannot be treated differently. You cannot have an adverse action. You can't be fired for just for merely complaining of the discrimination.
And it's good to keep records, isn't it?
Oh, we say that in everywhere we go to talk. Write things down. I mean, one of the best dates, times, and the best thing that we have right now are these devices. If you send yourself an email, then you date stamp the time that something happened, and it's easier to, when you come into our office, you're trying to recreate a record versus printing. Here's what happened to me on this date. This is an email that I received. These are the pictures that I received over my phone, and these are the dates that it happened.
Wow. So keeping records is important. I just think it's important to talk about this because right now we see Flagstar Bank has laid off a lot of people. And then, too, they're having this thing in Washington that you have nothing to do with about extending unemployment benefits.
Right. That's kind of horrible.
That's
it
just
seems no-brainer, but that's the political scene, and we're not.
Right. It's just so sad. I hate to see it happen because people have families. It's like people just don't care. I mean, it's just ludicrous.
And the unfortunate part about that is, though it does happen in Washington, it happens to us here. And
yes.
we were part of that furlough. We were part of the government shutdown. So for 16 days, and I said that would be the title of my book, 16 Days.
When you're going to write it?
I don't know. I'm going to put that vision board. That is a great idea.
Yeah.
We were off for 16 days, and we could not get to. There were people who were being harmed that had no recourse for that period of time. So that backed us up, and now we're getting floods of people coming in to try to file a charge. There are different ways of filing charges. The only problem was we weren't there in place, and it was absolutely nothing we could do about it. There was absolutely nothing we could do about it. So the national scene did impact Michigan in a large way.
Right. So you were laid off, or
we were shut down.
Down.
The managers went in to collect mail to make sure that persons' rights weren't affected in as much as we could, which means you have to serve the charge within 10 days. But we could not. Our investigators couldn't investigate. They couldn't take one document home. They had to sit there and wait, chomping at the bit to get to their cases.
Jeez. We have Ruby on the line. Good morning, Ruby.
Good morning, Ms. Perryman, and to your guests.
Good morning.
I happened to turn TV up because you caught my attention when you were saying you were with EEOC.
Yes.
And you were saying something to the fact where when you file a charge and if the company that you work for, turn around and retaliate against you, that there was charges that could be filed against them.
That's a totally separate charge, yes.
I can't hardly hear you.
I said that's a totally separate charge, absolutely. If you were to file a charge with us and then they retaliate against you when you came down to our office, that would be a separate charge. So you would actually have two charges going at the same time.
Brenda, I can't hardly hear him out that speaker.
Is your television down?
Yes, it is. I'm in a totally different room. TV is all the way down.
Okay.
Can
you hear?
How's that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
If you were to file a charge, or even if you were to complain internally and did not file a charge with us, and then an adverse action would happen to you, or they would fire you, or they would move you, or they would just lay you off and say, we're going to lay you off while we investigate your complaint. That's retaliation. Those are forms of retaliation, and those are separate charges of discrimination.
You said there are separate charges, and so those charges would be filed with who?
You would come down to our office and file with us, but it would be a totally separate charge, given its own number and investigated independently.
Well, I went through that with the company that I had worked at. It started at 14 years, then I was reinstated after 2.5 years, and then I was retaliated again because I used to be a union steward, and I had filed charges down there because what they had did, they were giving other employees with less seniority jobs to do when I had more seniority to work there, and I had complained about it with EEOC, and my case really didn't go to me anywhere, and because I would file charges, they would retaliate against me. and they did retaliate against me. And twice, once they fired me at 14 years, and I went to arbitration, which I was out like 2.5 years. Then I went back to work, and then I was fired again after 21 years. So they were retaliating because I filed charges because they had gave a maintenance job to a white guy, and I was qualified. I had the seniority, just more than him, and they tried to make it seem as though when I filed my charges that I couldn't do the job because I was worried about my kids at home, and that's not what I told them. But this is what I found in the end, that they said that I couldn't accept the job as a maintenance person because of my kids' age. And then ever since then, they had started retaliating against me because I was complaining down at the office.
What I would suggest, unfortunately, well, obviously I cannot investigate your complaint right now because I'm here. What I would suggest, let me give you my telephone number at
Okay, what is it?
313
Uh-huh.
226
226.
4607.
226. I didn't get the last four.
4607.
Uh-huh.
Now, I won't be in the office today or Monday because of the holiday, but give me a call in my office. We'll take a look at your information. Now, I can't guarantee you that I can do anything about your situation, but I can look into it and give you information on what your rights are and what you can or cannot possibly do.
And what is your name?
My name's Daron Calhoun. That number is right. That number is right to my desk.
Okay.
Calhoun is the last name. Got it? Got it, Ruby? Okay, thank you. Okay, it's Daron Calhoun. Okay, Daron, people, a job is such an important thing.
It's everything. Especially in this economy. It's everything. And we have millions of people out of work, and we have more than that trying to keep their jobs.
Yeah.
One of the most insidious things in the workplace is discrimination. And I was talking. We were interviewing a couple of interns yesterday, and one of the things that I was explaining to them to the second interview was that one of the worst things that can happen in the workplace for both the employer and the employee is discrimination, because it shackles you. Because discrimination discrimination itself is a manifestation of fear. It's never, and people cringe when I say this, it's not against the law to be prejudiced.
But to exercise.
But to exercise and to manifest those prejudices into an action, especially in the workplace, that shackles the entire workplace, because you can't act. The employer can't act because they can't make the widget that they're trying to make because they're always trying to get that person. And then the person who's being discriminated against can't produce what they've agreed to produce for them because they're always trying to stay away from that discrimination. So nothing's going on in the workplace. And that's what makes it it's just a horrible thing to go to work to wonder, is this person going to call me these racial epithets? Is this person going to come around and try to touch my shoulder? Is this person going to come around and make jokes? I had a case out everyone from Michigan, I had a case out here in, I think it was Hollywood, Michigan. And there's
a place named Hollywood?
There's a place named Hollywood, and I never knew it until I had to investigate it. And the employer told the people, the employees there, this is out, the unemployment rate in that area was like 38%. He told everyone, when you walk across the threshold, I'm God. So whenever something happens here, it's because I decide it happens. And what he would do would sit people around. He had Hispanic workers and African American workers and white workers. He would sit them around the room at lunchtime every day. Okay, we're going to make jokes about blacks today.
Oh my God.
And required that everyone would make an African American joke. And he told them that, well, if you don't like it, go find a job. And good luck with that. It's 38% unemployment.
Gee. People can be so cruel, but I believe in karma some kind of way.
Well,
some kind of way. Well, I want to applaud you on something else, and that's the fact that you go around during this time of year and you talk about Dr. Martin Luther King.
Absolutely.
Can you
Absolutely.
tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, we have a speakers bureau where we have a lot of our employees, and it's not just me here in Michigan. We have them across the country. They're called program analysts and program outreach. So if they're watching, this is your shout out, guys. We go around and we give training, and we also speak for we give outreach, and we do this every week of the year. But this time of year, it's a little bit more special, and that's because when we were talking about this yesterday, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. I look at us as freedom fighters.
Right.
We are the absolute descendant, the direct descendant in employment discrimination. We are the direct descendants of the dream. We are actually the realization of the dream. When those persons marched and gave their lives for civil rights, we're now standing in the gap, making sure that those rights are protected. And that's what gets me up in the morning. That's what gets me to work every morning. Even on the worst days, I can look up and I have a picture on my wall, a vision. I have a picture of my wall, and it came to me on Facebook. It was President Obama, Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King. And I have that on my wall so that all can see. Because when my days get bad, when my days get really bad, I turn around and say, now these men are sacrificing and have sacrificed their life so that people can have equal employment, equal housing, and equal justice. Why would I have a bad day?
Right.
How can somebody yelling at me be a bad day when they lost their life?
The lives, yeah.
So that's one of the things. I mean, we are the grandchildren of the civil rights movement.
So tell us about what you do when you go around to speak.
Well,
This month,
I have 2 engagements so far, and we go around and we talk to. We really want to get out to schools. So if any teachers are watching this, give me a call at my office, because we want to go to the schools. We go out to career fairs. We go to schools and talk about how directly the movement and that march which created the signing of the Civil Rights Act, created our agency. Our doors opened 50 years ago.
Isn't that
because
something?
of the civil rights, because of that picture with Martin Luther King standing behind President Johnson signing that document, opened our doors, and that was 50 years ago. So we're celebrating our 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act. Next year we'll celebrate 50th anniversary of the EEOC doors actually opening, and we get.
Were you alive when that was signed?
Not really. No, that was 3 years before I was born.
Well, I was alive, and we went down to South Carolina. My mother put my brother and I on a bus, and we got there the day after the Civil Rights Bill was passed.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was a little town, Kingstree, South Carolina. That's where I was born. And they had taken the stools up in the restaurant so nobody could sit. Nobody can sit. And just different things that we saw that up here it was more covert.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just didn't see it out blatantly. But it was just a real adventure.
And imagine they would rather lose business than gain business because of a hate. And if you ask them, why do you hate African Americans so much? Why do you hate black folks so much? They would never be able to tell you.
Never be able to tell you.
And even today, why would you do that? It's one of the questions that we ask. Why in our investigations? A lot of times,
do you get answers?
Not at all. There is no answer. There is no answer to why do you hate so much.
Interestingly enough, with Dr. King's speeches, and you've studied his speeches.
Oh yeah,
right?
listen to him all the time. It gives me a shot in the office when I get down. I put on the speeches. I have it on my iPad, and I just play them. Yesterday, as I was sitting in my office listening to them, people were walking by. So I put an email out. Come on by my office and get this shot. You need this. It'll remind you why we're here. It'll remind you. If you can't get the energy after listening to a Martin Luther King speech, and it's not just "I Have a Dream." We don't need to start. We need to listen to the other speeches.
There are a lot of speeches.
There are a ton of them.
And as I told you, there's one with him. Well, it's not a speech, but he was on the Merv Griffin show, and I forgot the other white guy who was on there besides Merv Griffin, but he was disagreeing with Dr. King. It's a long segment because they had to put it on. You know how YouTube does two things. They had to put that on. And Dr. King was very, very blunt. And he was so scholarly. He was so prolific. It's like that these people couldn't believe that this man was this smart.
And never had to curse, never had
Never.
to raise his voice, just gave his information. And that's why you can't explain hate. There's just no way to explain that. How do you explain this? Because this person is smarter than me or as smart as me.
I think
it
it's
makes me
fear,
upset.
too.
It's absolutely fear.
It's fear of the black man or the Hispanic man.
I don't even think I think it's fear of I'm not as good.
Right. Well, that's, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
more than their color of their skin or their nationality, I fear for myself. So even in the workplace, I fear that I'm going to lose my job because they're better than me. And instead of getting better, I'm going to do some make some racial epithets or something like that.
We have Glenn on the line. Good morning, Glenn.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
Just fine, thanks.
I just happened to call because I saw the EEOC on the show.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How about
Daron,
yourself?
Calhoun, Glenn.
Well,
Johnson.
I called you this morning because of the auto show and all of that. We have Mary Barra, the new CEO and chief of General Motors. I sat in her window pane at General Motors, and I am the designer of the Pontiac line. Okay. Now, Miss Barra came from Fiero, Pontiac. If she has done all of this, why didn't she blow up her line of Pontiac as one of her jewels of the car industry? She couldn't do that because I did Pontiac, and I was a computer expert there, and I embarrassed a 12-man design team of Michael J. Marluzzi. They came to my cubicle. They photographed what I had. They put in their pockets the rest of it, practically patted me on my head. My yellow dot on my badge marked me as a GM scab, not a direct employee. They sat on my artwork until 2005 because you could not bend plastic in two directions. In 2006, when GE did this plastic, and then they started launching my cars when President Obama became president and gave them money to do so. I have no platform to speak to who I am and what I've done. I have a portfolio that will blow your eyes out, but I have no representation that will touch me. I spoke to Figer 2 times, once before bankruptcy and one after bankruptcy. First, he said they were going to be bankrupt, they'd be poor, he can represent me. After they got their money, he said he can't represent me because it take them too long to sue them because they got too much money. So here I am with all this design talent. I'm unemployed now. I used to work for the city of Detroit, but I do have a plan to create jobs for our young Detroiters for 3D sculpting and printing. I am a 3D sculptor with the talent that everybody's looking for to catch up to. In junior college, would have to have this sculpture for a 3D advanced 21st century jobs. And I'm wondering, even if this is 14 years old or 16 years old, can I still have some kind of representation to poke GM in the eye and my ex-boss, Mary Barra? Thank you.
Did you need his number?
I'm still here.
Oh,
Was there a question? That's a lot of things you say was really unfortunate, but I don't know if there was a question for me.
did you check with the EEOC? Hello, Glenn? Well, I think he says he's tried all the recourses, but give your number out anyway.
My telephone number on my desk is, I don't have a secretary, so but right on my desk is 313-226-4607. Now, if you want to make an appointment to come on down to our office, I'm going to give you the main number. It's 313-226-4600. We're on the 8th floor of the McNamara building, right downtown on Michigan and Cass. Our doors are open. We open at 8, and for walk-in, we take them from 8 to 10, and then from 11 to 3, we do appointments. So and that's Monday through Thursday. Fridays, we have to take the time to do the work. So, but you can always call us. You can always get on the internet. My telephone number is on the internet as well. If you didn't get that, it's I'm under the public liaison person for the office.
My goodness, that story that Glenn related reminded me of so many black inventions that
Absolutely.
were taken.
Absolutely.
they were taken, and that's heartbreaking, really.
It is.
I mean, I could just feel the hurt that he had as he was talking about it also.
And the length of time.
Oh.
He started talking about things in 2005.
Yeah.
I mean, just like I was saying earlier, there was a person who endured a lot of discrimination for years just because he didn't want to lose his job. And this individual talked to us that it was 6 years that he was being ridiculed by his supervisor, his direct supervisor, because of his physical condition. So that's really
because
important.
of his
Because of the physical, he had vitiligo. And his supervisor ridiculed him over and over for years before he ever complained.
ridicule.
For years, and so those are the kind of that's what we get coming in the door. What do you talk? He talked about me. He called me names. He said this, and he usually did it in private, so it was only he against one person against the other person. This time he was so bold he did it in front of people.
I had a principal once, and I'll never forget. Well, when I was young, I was in a car accident, broke my back, paralyzed, all that stuff, but I was still able to walk, but had this slight limp. And I was walking down the hall one day, and this was a black man, and it was not in Highland Park. It was in Southfield. But he said, I was coming down the hall one day because I was very active, and he said, "Oh, look, everybody, she's walking straight." He said that. It was like, but karma takes care of everything. It did.
It absolutely does.
He lost that job.
As
but
well he should
not
have.
not because of me, but it happened. I talked to him about that. In fact, I wasn't afraid of him. I confronted him because, it was hard to fire a teacher.
Right.
But anyway, Daron, it's the time for the show to
my
come
goodness.
to an end already. We could just talk
We could
on.
talk forever.
We could talk on and on and on forever and days. And our company's fined by
They're not necessarily fined. What we do is we try to find a remedy. We try to make people whole, and if they go to court, it's different. And we do take them to court. And I guess we'll save that for the next show.
Yes.
we do
court.
we do actually go into court and we actually invest after the investigations are done. We try to get as much as we can.
See you this afternoon on Table Talk. Richard Harrison is my guest, one of my guest co-hosts today.